kind of crazy. So in Great Britain, and this was backed by another study a few years ago, a recently published study examined organized child sexual exploitation groups in the United Kingdom has resonated a debate over the issue commonly referred to as grooming gangs. The research analyzed offender demographics, crime patterns, and institutional responses across multiple cases spanning several decades. The topic has remained controversial due to disagreements over the interpretation of the data, media coverage, and questions about whether authorities were reluctant to address certain aspects of the crimes. The issue continues to be discussed in the political, legal, and public policy circles. So it is a wild number that was supposed to be, or allegedly was raping white, and that's what they said, white girls or women in the last few years. In West Yorkshire, 35% of child sexual exploitation suspects were Asian, while Asians made up about 16% of the population. So that is should be also 16% if it would be in relation. In Great Manchester, more than 50% were Asian. So the Asians are mostly Pakistani, from my understanding. In Operation Stovewood, nearly 2/3 of those convicted were Pakistani heritage, while Pakistanis were roughly 4% of the local population. So 2/3, 66% of those convicted were Pakistani, and just 4% of the local population are Pakistani. The report stated that the available national data was too poor to make definite nationwide conclusions about offender ethnicity, but found enough evidence that the issue warranted further investigation. Yeah, because it was not nationwide, the study, but it's definitely a crazy number and ratio. The government announced that over 800 historic cases would be reviewed, with officials expecting the total to exceed 1,000 cases. Yeah, so crazy stuff. Yeah, I don't know how it plays out, how it all works, why that is really happening, why they get this notion that is justified to rape people. They say it's because they're of a different belief and therefore they're not worthy anything. And even if they think so, there's no place, to my knowledge, in the Quran that says you can rape women that are non-believers. The Quran, I don't think the Quran is the problem. I don't believe in the Quran because it just has some problems that are making no sense. Like, for example, the Quran says that Jesus was a prophet, but not the Messiah. You can't say that. There's either or. So either someone who says he's the son of God, and you claim he's not, he's just a prophet. But then at the same time, you would actually have to say, well, if he says he's the son of God, but he's just a prophet, he would be a blasphemer. And that's the highest of sins. That's the worst. So he's either the truth or he's a huge blasphemer and he's the worst. And from all the evidence, historic, in the Bible, because the Bible also has historic accounts. They were just put in the Bible. It's not like it's a book of 66 authors. And they're written in historic narrative, the Gospels. And also we have over 100 of prophecies from the Old Testament that Jesus fulfilled. So they were talking about in Isaiah 53 that, basically he was The one who's to come is going to be nailed to the cross and be rejected. And 700 years later, it happens. He would like that is historically pretty well established that Jesus lived and was crucified, and that he said that he will be crucified. He said he has to be, meaning himself, the Messiah, has to be lifted up as the serpent in the wilderness. And that was from the Old Testament, when they put a serpent on a cross in order to face their fears and cast out their fears over these toxic serpents that were in the desert going after the Israelites. And they were actually, by that, healed in a way that the toxins of the serpents would not affect them anymore. And as they put a serpent on a cross and lifted it up, he said he has to be lifted up as the serpent in the wilderness. And that is a picture, obviously, someone, the serpent, like him on the cross, lifted up. So and there's so many of these things. And it's just like, okay, guys, you can't say that. You can't say he was a prophet. Blasphemer, biggest blasphemer ever, or the truth and the Son of God. Or you just say he doesn't exist, whatever, which is also pretty, disproven that he didn't exist. So that's my biggest issue. I can't believe in that when there's such a discrepancy. And it's a one author book. Of course, you can't, if you have one author, you're not going to conflict yourself, but he even does. Contradict yourself, sorry. So, but there's nothing in the Islam that would make anyone who has any brain think you could just rape non-believers. It also says here, there's no mainstream Islamic teaching that says it's justified to rape non-believers. I'm just going to read this. Historically, classic Islamic law, like many pre-modern legal systems, permitted slavery, including female captives taken in war. Some medieval jurists allow sexual relationships with female slaves under specific legal framework of this time. Modern critics argue that the doctrines created conditions that could be exploited to justify coercive sex, while contemporary Muslim scholars generally reject slavery altogether and view such rulings as inapplicable today. Groups such as Islamic State explicitly cited medieval texts and precedents to justify enslaving and sexually abusing non-Muslim captives, particularly Yazidi women. Their interpretation was widely condemned by Muslim scholars and institutions around the world as a distortion of Islam. Yeah, and that's what happens. It's the same, we're hundreds of years later, but there was also a lot of bloodshed in the name of Christianity. But did Jesus anywhere teach us to do that? Is there anything in the Bible that tells us to kill non-believers? No. People still did it. But that's not the fault of the Bible. That's the fault of the people. So in that same way, it's a corruption of the Islam, and it's not the Islam itself that would make people do that. That's people using the Islam and misinterpreting it, and probably kind of somewhat willfully so. So I just want to say that on that. And we both have the Old Testament that we believe in. We have the same origin. Islam says if you want to find out the truth, look at the Bible. It actually says so. Which is kind of weird, which is kind of like thinking to me, making me think that, did Muhammad want to lure Christians into his belief by doing that? Yeah, we're so similar. Just read my text, and it's like I'm a new prophet, so this is all right and stuff. But I'm just making maybe like a third covenant. I don't know. And I'm the end of this all. I'm the last one to come. So yeah. But as I said, I told you the reason why I don't believe it. You can believe whatever you want. You can. I have Muslim friends that are really nice, really good people, and I think true, real Muslims are good people that really live by the book. And yeah, that's on that. I wish you all a very, very great week. I hope you enjoyed this and you subscribe, and there's going to be a lot more to come. And please tell me where you want my stands on which topics, whether it's somewhat Christian or political, societal. Also, you can ask me some stuff about, obviously bodybuilding and fitness and whatnot, health. I just want to say that this is obviously my opinion and my interpretation at this point in time. I'm not claiming to know anything for certain, or that my interpretations are dead right, like spot on, and that I'm not of any shortcoming or, misinterpretation maybe myself. So I encourage you, if you have a different opinion, to argue your point in a nice way and in a good faith way, so we can get a good dialogue here. And yeah, just hope you enjoyed this. Hope you subscribe. Hope you share it with all your friends and family and loved ones. And I'm glad I got into this. So have a good one. Bye bye.